The desert planet of Sindara stretched endlessly under a sky that burned like fire. Its twin suns rose each day with blinding brightness, scorching the cracked earth below. Human colonists had come here decades ago, drawn by a rare mineral called solarate, essential for the new generation of interstellar engines. Life on Sindara was harsh. The heat alone could kill an unprepared human in minutes, yet humanity endured as they always did. Lieutenant Aaron Kale stood at the edge of the mining camp, watching the horizon. His skin, tanned and toughened by years in harsh suns, glistened with sweat under his suit's protective layer. His eyes, sharp and alert, scanned the shifting dunes. Aaron had led mining crews in some of the deadliest regions of space, but Sindara tested every skill he had. Here, survival was more than following orders. It was using wit, courage, and the human instinct to endure. The comm unit crackled to life. Kale, report. Any sign of the Zirans? Aaron adjusted the earpiece. All clear. Crew is on schedule. I'll continue the sweep and report back. He hung up, his jaw tight. The Zirans, a distant alien empire, were known for their intelligence and cruelty. Their presence near human colonies was always a threat, yet they rarely engaged directly. Still, any encounter could turn deadly. The mining team, 8 humans in total, labored under the relentless sun. They were extracting solarate from veins deep beneath the desert's surface, lowering heavy equipment into tunnels that glimmered with a strange golden light. The mineral was precious because it could withstand extreme heat, a key material for engines that would take humans to new star systems. Every day they risked heatstroke, sandstorms, and mechanical failure to secure humanity's future. As Aaron inspected a new excavation site, he noticed something strange. A jagged ridge in the sand, not marked on any survey, seemed to glow faintly. Curious, he approached cautiously. The closer he got, the more he realized it wasn't natural. Structures, tall, thin towers of metal, half buried by the shifting dunes. It was a Ziran outpost, hidden and silent. Aaron's instincts screamed caution. Zirans rarely built unarmed outposts. He raised his hand to signal the team to stay back. We'll investigate, he muttered, mostly to himself. His curiosity was stronger than fear, a trait that had saved his life more than once. He crept closer, keeping to the shadows of the dunes. The outpost was empty, at least at first glance. Doors were sealed, but not locked. Aaron tested one. It clicked open. Inside, the air was cool, far colder than the desert outside. Strange alien technology hummed quietly, lights pulsing in slow, rhythmic patterns. Then he saw her. A figure crouched near one of the consoles, delicate in posture but alert. Her skin was pale with a faint shimmer, and her eyes, large and violet, reflected intelligence and fear. She froze when she saw him. "Who are you?" Aaron asked carefully, his voice steady. She spoke in her own language at first, sharp and alien. Aaron frowned. His translator activated automatically. "I am Lyra," she said in broken galactic standard, "a scientist, trapped by my people." Aaron's heart raced. Zirans did not capture their own lightly. "Trapped, why?" he asked, stepping closer but not threateningly. Lyra hesitated, then explained. Her people punished questioning of the Empire. She had doubted Ziran orders to suppress colonies, and had been locked away in this hidden outpost as a result. She spoke quietly, her voice filled with fear, yet with a calm intelligence that struck Aaron. Unlike other Zirans he had read about, she showed empathy, concern for life. Aaron knew leaving her would mean certain death. Despite orders, he made a decision. "We're leaving," he said simply. He gestured for her to follow. The return journey was perilous. Ziran patrols passed nearby, their hovercrafts kicking up heat waves that shimmered over the dunes. Aaron led Lyra through hidden gullies and narrow passes, using every human trick of navigation and survival. He showed her how to avoid heat traps, how to read the wind to find pockets of shade, and how to ration water with precision. Humans had survived harsh planets before. This was another test of their ingenuity and courage. Lyra adapted quickly. Her scientific mind noticed patterns in the desert wind, how the sand shifted over heat waves, and how to use discarded solarate equipment as makeshift tools. Despite her fear, she worked alongside Aaron, and a bond of mutual respect began to form. By the second day, exhaustion and thirst set in. They had no choice but to stop near a rocky outcrop where shade provided a rare respite. Lyra looked at Aaron with something resembling awe. "Your people? They endure so much," Aaron shook his head. It's not endurance alone. It's understanding, planning, and refusing to give up. We're not the strongest species in the universe, but we survive because we care for each other, and we think ahead. Lyra's eyes softened. She had seen power and control all her life, but never this. Determination combined with compassion. Humans, she realized, were strong not just because of muscle or weaponry, but because of heart. The night brought more challenges. The desert temperature dropped suddenly, almost freezing in contrast to the sun's heat. Aaron built a small fire using leftover solarite shards and some dry brush, carefully shielding it so patrols could not see. Lyra helped, placing rocks and shielding materials with precision. For a moment, the dangers of the day faded. They shared simple rations, speaking cautiously about their pasts. Lyra told Aaron of her work with Xeran technology, of experiments designed to control populations. Aaron listened, fascinated. Humanity thrived on freedom, exploration, and innovation. Xerans, she explained, valued order above all, suppressing individuality. Aaron realized that their journey together was more than survival. It was a clash of ideals. Morning came with a blazing sunrise. The desert wind picked up, scattering sand and waves that cut like knives. Aaron surveyed the horizon. Xeran patrols had not been far behind, but their path led him to a narrow canyon that could hide them. He took Lyra's hand briefly, a gesture of reassurance. Together they descended into the canyon, relying on instinct, training, and trust. By the end of the first week, they had traveled farther than Aaron had initially planned. Lyra had learned much about humans, and Aaron had glimpsed the potential for change in someone he once considered an enemy. Each step was a test of courage, resourcefulness, and patience. Every human skill, navigation, survival, teamwork, was put to the ultimate test under the relentless heat of Sindara. As they reached a ridge overlooking a distant human outpost, Aaron allowed himself a moment of hope. The settlement glimmered faintly in the morning light, a beacon of safety. Lyra looked at it too, her eyes wide with wonder and relief. She had seen the worst of her people and the harshness of the desert, yet here, in humanity's endurance and ingenuity, she found something new: trust, respect, and perhaps friendship. Aaron smiled, feeling the weight of the journey. The desert had tested them, forced them to rely on courage, wit, and heart. But they had survived. Humanity's strength was not just in tools or weapons. It was in resilience, empathy, and an unyielding will to endure. The heat of Sindara had tested them, but their journey was far from over. The next challenge would demand more than survival. It would demand understanding, compassion, and the forging of bonds that could change both human and Xeran destinies. For now, though, they had made it through the first trial. And for Aaron, that was proof enough that humans were extraordinary, even on a world as unforgiving as Sindara. Aaron and Lyra crouched behind a cluster of jagged rocks overlooking the distant human outpost. The settlement was small but well fortified, its walls designed to withstand the scorching winds and any potential Xeran attack. For Aaron, it was a safe haven after days of peril, but the journey had only just begun. Lyra, on the other hand, was still processing everything she had experienced. Human ingenuity, courage, and compassion were unlike anything she had known in her structured, controlled life among the Xerans, Aaron whispered. We move at first light. The guards shift every 2 hours. I know a hidden path to the gate. He looked at her, seeing her tension. You'll be safe once we're inside, but we must stay careful. Lyra nodded. I can help, she said, voice steady but quiet. I know Xeran surveillance patterns. I can predict their moves. Aaron studied her for a moment. Her knowledge of Xeran technology was deep, and combining it with human intuition could give them an edge. Then we moved together, he said. The night was bitterly cold. Sindara's twin suns had gone, leaving a sky filled with stars and a wind that cut like blades through their suits. Aaron taught Lyra to find shelter from the wind using natural formations. They dug shallow pits behind rocks, creating small alcoves to block the gusts. Lyra marveled at the simple techniques humans used, primitive to her eyes, yet so effective. This is remarkable, she admitted. Your species survives everywhere, on ice planets, desert worlds, even deep in gas clouds. How do you do it? Aaron shrugged. We adapt. We work together. We don't just survive, we try to improve, learn, and protect one another. Xerans have strength, but they lack that. Connection. We fight, yes, but also for something bigger. Hope, freedom, each other. Lyra's eyes reflected a mixture of wonder and sadness. In her society, questioning orders was punishable. Emotions were suppressed for efficiency. Seeing humans act on empathy, trust, and moral choices made her realize the Ziran way was not the only path. The first light of dawn crept across the dunes. Aaron and Lyra began their cautious trek toward the human outpost. Aaron led, scanning for signs of Ziran patrols. Lyra observed quietly, noting subtle shifts in sand patterns and light reflections, helping predict where hidden surveillance devices might be. Their movements were synchronized, an unspoken understanding forming between them. They reached a narrow canyon, a natural passage leading directly to the settlement. But the canyon was treacherous. The heat intensified as the morning sun reflected off the rock walls, and the ground was unstable, filled with loose sand and jagged stones. Aaron tested the footing before each step, and Lyra followed closely, learning quickly. "Your people are careful," she said, almost in awe. "Every move is considered." Aaron smiled faintly. "We survive because we think, not just act. That's human strength." Halfway through the canyon, a sudden tremor shook the ground. Loose rocks tumbled down and a faint roar echoed through the narrow passage. Aaron reacted instantly, pulling Lyra back as a small landslide threatened to bury the path. They pressed themselves against the canyon wall, hearts racing. When the dust settled, the path was partially blocked. "We have to climb over," Aaron said. He began testing handholds along the canyon wall. Lyra followed, using her alien agility and intelligence to navigate the tricky climb. Step by step they ascended, muscles straining under the heat and weight of their packs. Finally, they reached the canyon's edge, breathless but triumphant. Below, the human outpost spread like an oasis amid the harsh desert, its walls glinting under the morning sun. Aaron guided Lyra to a hidden ladder leading down into the base. They descended carefully, finally reaching the safety of human territory. Inside the outpost, Aaron introduced Lyra to Commander Tessa Rin, a seasoned human leader. Tessa's eyes studied Lyra intently, weighing her trustworthiness. Lyra explained her situation, the Ziran pursuit, her knowledge of their technology, and her desire to change. Tessa listened quietly, then nodded. "If she helps us, she's welcome here," she said. Lyra spent the following days learning about human life on Sandara. She observed miners, engineers, and pilots all working together to survive and thrive in the harsh desert. She saw children learning about the stars, scientists experimenting with new ways to extract solarate, and soldiers training to protect their homes. Everywhere she looked, she saw the qualities that Aaron had spoken of: empathy, creativity, courage, and collaboration. One evening, as the twin suns set in a fiery blaze, Aaron and Lyra sat on a ridge outside the outpost, sharing a quiet moment. "You were right," Lyra said softly. "It's not just survival. Humans, they care. You fight, but you also love. That makes you strong." Aaron looked at her. "Strength alone isn't enough. We have to care or we're just machines. Humans survive because we help each other, even when it's hard." Lyra hesitated, then touched his arm lightly. "I've seen things I never thought possible. Maybe I can change too. I want to help, for the first time in my life." Their conversation was interrupted by an alert from the outpost. Ziran patrols had been spotted nearby, scanning the dunes. Aaron's instincts kicked in immediately. "We prepare," he ordered. "If they find us unready, we lose everything." The humans quickly organized. Soldiers positioned themselves along the walls. Engineers readied defensive mechanisms, and Aaron and Lyra shared critical intelligence about the Ziran patrol's behavior. Using her knowledge of Ziran technology, Lyra suggested ways to create false heat signatures to mislead sensors and misdirect the patrols. Humans adapted her suggestions quickly, combining them with their survival strategies. Night fell, and the desert became a theater of strategy and patience. The Ziran patrols appeared, searching for signs of intrusion. Using human ingenuity and Lyra's insight, the defenders created traps and diversions. Heat-reflecting panels and solarate mirrors confused the patrol's sensors, while hidden teams moved silently to intercept any approaching threats. The first clash was brief but intense. Ziran drones hovered above, scanning for life forms, but the humans' careful planning allowed them to evade detection. Aaron led a small squad to disable a drone silently, using a combination of human tactics and Lyra's knowledge of alien systems. The drone crashed into the sand without a sound, unnoticed by the patrols. After the encounter, Lyra looked at Aaron with admiration. Your people are incredible. Not because of weapons or armor, but because of thinking, trusting, and working together. Aaron smiled faintly. That's human nature. We survive, yes, but we also hope. And hope makes us strong. In the days that followed, Aaron and Lyra trained together. She learned human survival skills, from rationing water to reading the desert's subtle signs. He learned from her too, about Xeran technology, patterns of behavior, and how to anticipate their moves. They became a team, bridging the gap between species through trust, respect, and shared purpose. One evening, as another harsh day ended, they climbed a ridge overlooking the desert. The horizon was endless, stretching into the unknown. Lyra's eyes shone with determination. I want to help humanity protect more than just this outpost. I want to help protect your ideals, freedom, courage, hope. Aaron nodded. Then we'll face the next challenge together. The desert has tested us, but the real test will come when we face the Xerans directly. We must be ready, not just to survive, but to prove what humans truly are. The night sky shimmered with stars, reflecting on Lyra's wide eyes. She had left her people, her past, and the controlled life she knew. Here, with humans, she discovered something new. A chance to make a choice. To fight not for orders, but for values, for connection, and perhaps for love. As the twin suns began to rise again, painting the desert gold and crimson, Aaron and Lyra stood side by side, ready for whatever lay ahead. The journey through Sindara had tested their endurance, courage, and trust. Now it was time to show that humans were extraordinary, not only in their ability to survive, but in their ability to inspire hope, change hearts, and forge bonds that could alter the course of the universe. The desert's heat had forced them to endure. The dangers of the Xerans had tested their courage. And in the quiet moments between battles, a new force had begun to grow, a force that neither side had anticipated, understanding, respect, and the beginnings of a bond that could free both human and Xeran hearts. And so, with the stars above and the desert below, Part 2 closed on a note of cautious optimism. The greatest test was still ahead, but for the first time, Aaron and Lyra faced it not as strangers or enemies, but as allies, humans and Xerans united by shared purpose, courage, and the sparks of understanding that might one day become something more. The desert sun rose over Sindara, painting the sand in shades of gold and orange. The human outpost was alive with preparation. Reports from scouts confirmed what Aaron had feared. A Xeran fleet was approaching, determined to reclaim Lyra and punish the humans for harboring her. The atmosphere was tense, but there was no panic. Humans thrived on challenges, and this would be no different. Aaron stood at the command post, reviewing defensive strategies with Commander Tessa Rin. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes scanning maps of the desert and the predicted approach of Xeran forces. We can use the terrain to our advantage, she suggested. The canyon networks, the heat fields, they can hide movements and confuse their sensors. Aaron nodded, impressed by her insight. Then that's what we'll do. Humans survive by thinking ahead, by working together, by using every advantage. Today, that advantage is the desert itself, and our teamwork. Soldiers prepared defensive lines. Engineers reinforced walls, and technicians deployed heat-reflective panels and solar-rate mirrors across key positions. Lyra moved swiftly among the humans, instructing them on Xeran detection patterns and how to disable surveillance devices. The humans listened and adapted instantly, combining their own resourcefulness with her knowledge. By midday, the Xeran fleet appeared on the horizon. Sleek silver ships glinted under the twin suns hovering over the dunes. Drones separated from the main fleet, scanning for life signs. Aaron and Lyra watched silently, knowing the first move would decide the battle. Remember, Aaron whispered to Lyra, this is not just about fighting. It's about proving what humans are capable of. We survive, we protect, and we inspire. That's our strength, Lyra nodded. And together we can show them something new. The first engagement began quietly. Drones swept low over the desert, scanning for movement. Using heat-reflective panels, humans created false heat signatures, tricking the drones into investigating empty areas. Hidden squads moved silently behind dunes, ready to disable any that discovered the truth. Aaron led a team toward a ridge where a cluster of drones hovered. Lyra guided them, pointing out blind spots and weak sensors. Together they moved like shadows, coordinating with precision. With careful timing, they disabled 2 drones, sending them crashing into the sand without alerting the main fleet. The Xerans quickly realized something was wrong. Their sensors showed irregular patterns and confusion rippled through their ranks. Using this advantage, the humans launched their next maneuver. Engineers triggered small controlled heat eruptions from underground solarate deposits, creating shimmering waves that disoriented the drone's visual systems. The desert itself became a weapon. Despite their technological superiority, the Xerans struggled against human ingenuity. Soldiers advanced under the protective cover of shadows and heat distortions, disabling surveillance nodes and reclaiming key positions around the outpost. Lyra's knowledge of Xeran tactics allowed them to anticipate each move, turning the alien strategy against itself. But the battle was far from over. A larger Xeran contingent moved closer, their intention clear: breach the outpost and capture Lyra. Aaron called a meeting of the leaders. "We need a plan that uses everything: terrain, tech, and trust," he said. "This is our home and we will defend it together." Lyra stepped forward. "We can use the Molten Rift. It's unstable, dangerous, but if we lure them there, the terrain will do the fighting for us." The Molten Rift was a canyon filled with rivers of molten rock. Crossing it was nearly impossible for anyone unprepared. Aaron's mind raced. "It's risky, but it could work. If we set traps and lead them carefully, we can protect the outpost and end the pursuit." That night, under the cover of darkness, the humans and Lyra prepared the Molten Rift. Heat-resistant panels, reflective mirrors, and solarate barriers were positioned strategically. Soldiers took their posts, knowing the danger but trusting in human strategy and courage. Lyra moved among them, coordinating signals and predicting enemy movements with precision. At dawn, the Xerans arrived, unaware of the trap. Humans feigned retreat, drawing the Xeran forces toward the canyon. Aaron and Lyra stayed behind the dunes, watching the plan unfold. As the Xerans entered the Molten Rift, the terrain came alive. Reflected sunlight blinded sensors, heat waves distorted their view, and solarate barriers forced them into narrow channels. Humans used the chaos to disable enemy equipment and disable hovercrafts. The battle reached its peak when a large Xeran assault squad attempted to flank the human forces. Aaron led a small team across a narrow ledge, using ingenuity and agility to disable the squad before they could reach the main outpost. Lyra directed the movements, her voice calm yet commanding. The humans worked in perfect coordination, each action precise and purposeful. Finally, the Xeran forces, confused and overwhelmed, retreated. The desert was silent again, save for the wind and the soft hum of solarate equipment. The outpost had survived. Humans had triumphed. And Lyra stood beside Aaron, realizing the truth she had come to understand. Courage, compassion, and cooperation were more powerful than any weapon. As the heat of the day rose, Aaron and Lyra walked among the recovering soldiers. Lyra's eyes were bright with understanding. "Your people. You fight, yes, but you also protect, teach, and care. That is why you survive where others fail." Aaron smiled. "And we don't do it alone. Trust, teamwork, and hope are what make us human. That's why we endure. Why we thrive." Later, in the quiet moments after the battle, Aaron and Lyra climbed a ridge to watch the twin suns set over the desert. The sky was ablaze with color, reflecting on Lyra's wide eyes. "I never thought I could feel hope," she said softly, "but here with your people I see what life can be. I want to be part of it. Not just survive, but protect, learn, and care." Aaron looked at her, seeing not just an ally, but someone who had learned the true strength of humanity. "You are welcome here, Lyra. Not because you're a Xeran, but because you believe in what we believe. Hope, courage, and connection. That is what frees us all." For the first time, Lyra felt freedom, not as a prisoner of her empire, but as someone capable of choice, action, and love. Humanity had shown her that bonds, compassion, and courage could overcome fear and oppression. As night fell, the outpost celebrated quietly. No loud fanfare, just the satisfaction of survival, strategy, and shared accomplishment. Humans and Lyra had faced the heat, the danger, and the alien forces, and emerged stronger, united, and inspired. Aaron and Lyra sat together under the stars, the desert wind cooling their faces. "The Xerans may return," Aaron said, "but they will never understand us fully. Humanity's strength is not just in weapons or technology. It's in hope, trust, and the will to protect each other." Lyra nodded. "And I understand it now. I will help spread that. In my own way." Not through fear or orders, but by choice, compassion, and courage. That is freedom. The twin suns began their slow rise, casting long shadows over the desert. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear: humans were extraordinary. Their strength was not in domination, but in resilience, unity, and the bonds they formed with one another and those willing to trust them. For Aaron and Lyra, the journey had begun with survival, tested by fire and sand. It had grown into trust, tested by danger and alien forces. And now it had transformed into freedom. A freedom bound not by heat or fear, but by understanding, hope, and love. The desert had tried to defeat them. The Xerans had sought to control them, and yet humanity had triumphed. Aaron looked at Lyra, and she looked at him. Together they knew the universe was vast and filled with challenges, but humanity's heart, courage, and the bonds of love and trust could face anything. Sindara was no longer just a desert of survival. It was a testament to what humans could achieve when they endured, adapted, and cared for one another. Irene and Lyra, side by side, reflected the greatest lesson the universe could learn. Freedom is born from courage, understanding, and love, and so, under the burning suns and the starlit skies, the story of Bound by Heat, Freed by Love reached its conclusion. Humans triumphant, hearts united, and a new future shining brightly on the horizon.